got promoted my job, and here's how you can too. So it was the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, when I felt this call to be home with my family. So I was working at a nonprofit in San Diego, and I just quit my job there to be home with my family back in San Jose. After quitting my job, I went on LinkedIn, hired a resume writer to tailor my resume to be an administrative assistant position for a tech company. And that's how I found myself to be working at this current semiconductor company now as an executive assistant. After working 2 years there, I got promoted along with a $10,000 spot bonus. And I want to help you get your promotion at work too. Here are 5 tips that I want to give you that will help you get your first promotion. So the first tip I have is called mastering your craft. Mastering your craft involves perfecting what you're already doing. So for me, that was being an assistant. So when I first became an assistant, I went to Amazon and bought the highly reviewed book called The Leader Assistant. It was just a manual for me to go back to when I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. But it was also a great way for me to figure out what are the best practices for me to become a good assistant. So some of which are to take initiative, to really think ahead of what I'm doing, to make sure that everything's organized. There's so many other things involved too. But it really is making sure you understand all the details of your own scope of work and just mastering it and getting better at it. So the first tip I want to give for you is to master your craft, whether you're in sales, engineering, or arts. You just want to keep on improving yourself and getting better and better. 6 months into my role, the VP of Business Development took notice of me. We'd always chat with each other because I sat at the front desk, and it was then he asked me to help him with his calendar. He was feeling very overwhelmed with all the things that were thrown at him. He needed someone to help him with all of those things. I stepped up to the challenge. I said yes and began helping him with his calendar. And through that time, I began to really expand my roles as an assistant because I was finally serving someone, managing his calendar and his time and his energy. So by the time the opening for the executive assistant role opened up, I was ready for it because I was already doing that job. My encouragement for you is to get into the mindset of that next role as well. So for me, from an administrative assistant to an executive assistant, I started thinking like an executive assistant. And as I started thinking, those opportunities opened up, and I got to practice being an executive assistant. So tip number 2 is to find mentors and coaches for you. A quote I love by Al Hussein Madhani said, "Mentors get you coffee, but coaches get you paid." I really love having both, but mentors primarily give you life advice, while coaches give you practical career advice. When I first began at the company, one of my mentors, she reached out to me because I was one of the few people that were in my 20s at the company. She saw that I was very naive and full of life and just really wanted to pour and invest in me. So we started meeting regularly, just talking about what the company culture is like, who the people are, what the people do at the company, and just really learn more about everything that goes on. In the Leader Assistant book, there was also this online community. In that community, I paid for one-on-one coaching with the founder, and that was very valuable to me because my coach, he's an executive assistant as well, and only executive assistants knows what executive assistants go through. So he faced the same struggles I faced. He also had some secret successes he wanted to share with me, and those were very valuable to me. One of which was asking for a raise. How do I ask for a raise when I am an assistant in the context of being an assistant? So he really helped me out with that in just crafting of what I've done and then presenting it properly to management. And my advice for you is to, 1, find a mentor, someone that can further along in life than you to really pour in you. And then 2, find a coach, someone very specialized in your role and scope of work. That way you can figure out and learn from the coach on all the things that you need to know about your role. So tip number 3 is to identify gaps. And so I'm a little ashamed to admit this, but I was afraid of being an assistant at first. In my role, I was sitting at the front desk scanning people's temperatures with a thermometer because it was the height of the pandemic and we needed someone to check and make sure they didn't have the virus. I was just thinking to myself, I have a bachelor's degree. I should be doing more than this. But at the same time, I fought that feeling of just I'm so grateful to have a job when others don't. That motivated me to just do better. I started identifying gaps when I was working. Because I had so much free time, there was a lot more for me to do, and I was just thinking to myself, there are better ways to do this thing. For example, we don't have a designated safety person in our company. And I stepped up, communicated with our VP of operations, and gathered a team of people from different departments together to meet monthly to go over if we had any injuries or near misses, host safety walkthroughs, and just make sure that our workplace is a safe operating place. And with that, I've been able to make our safety commitments so much better since we first started. It's because I was proactive, took initiative over this one topic of safety because we didn't have anyone in charge of it. So I took full ownership of it. So my tip for you is to identify those gaps and fill them. The fourth tip I have is to build relationships within your company. And so when I started off, I was sitting at the front desk and scanning people with a thermometer. And that was a great opportunity for me to just have small talk with people. I had such high visibility within the company because people had to come to me, get their temperature checked, and I had a chance to small talk with them and get to know them. And that was one of my favorite things about the role, was just actually getting to know these people as human beings and not for the job function themselves. By the time the opening of the executive assistant position came around, management, they already knew me. They saw that I was already doing an excellent job at the front desk, but they also knew what type of person I was. They already knew my personality and my character. So by the time the opening came around, they knew that yes, Wesley is the right guy for this role. So my recommendation for you is to simply just to get to know people within your company as human beings. Ask them how their day is really going. Ask them how their kids are doing. That they aren't just a means to justify your ends, but we're all there to help each other out. By the time that opportunity comes, we can actually help each other out. And my last tip for you is to sharpen the saw. So sharpen the saw comes from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. It's the 7th habit of where it's the story of you're walking down this road and you see this man cutting down this tree with a rusty saw. And you yell at the man, "Hey dude, you know, if you take the time to change out your saw, you can get a lot more done. You can cut down the tree a lot faster." And the man replies to you, "Oh, dude, I can't right now. I got a tree to cut down." That's just really a metaphor of how we approach our jobs, that we got things to do as parents, as workers, that we have deadlines to meet, which is absolutely true. But we do have to treat our jobs as a marathon and not so much a sprint. We can't keep sprinting every single moment of our lives because we will shut down. And so we have to take care of ourselves and treat it like a marathon. And so sharpening the saw really includes taking care of ourselves physically, emotionally, socially, and for me, spiritually. If you take the imagery of a cup and you fill it up, you want to be so filled that you're overflowing into others. With sharpening the saw, you get to do your job the best that you can because you feel so great physically, your mind is mentally sharp, you are fully living in your purpose. So my tip for you is to make sure you're taking care of yourself in that way. So these are my tips for you to help you get a promotion, to master your craft, to find mentors and pay for coaches, to identify gaps, build meaningful relationships, and to take care of yourself and sustain yourself long term. Thank you so much for watching. And one thing that really helps me in my job is time management. If that's something you're struggling with right now, you can click here to view this video on my top 5 strategies on effective time management. So thank you again so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.